Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point. I am Shane, and I am here with you today with a brand spanking new, high quality content, which you have all been waiting for clearly, and that is the Command Point Into the Dark tier list. I know that the excitement is just palpable in the room right now, and you probably don't know what to do with your hands. I would advise you just, get a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this, because this is the highest quality content that you can find out there for Kill Team, truly. And it's evidenced by all these other tier lists out there now. So, but in all seriousness, I really wanted to hold. I know I'm late on this, and we're typically not late on our tier lists here at Command Point, but I wanted to wait to see if there was going to be an FAQ or an errata addressing some of the forward deploy stuff, and I mentioned this in the last video where I went over the FAQ, and lo and behold, they did update it, so I don't feel silly now doing it so late rather. So obviously this tier list, as you can see, it's changed a little from what you may remember from the old tier list. I've gotten rid of S plus because I don't think that right now on Into the Dark there's anything that warrants that. Maybe. And I also got rid of F because and here's where I explain the Shadow Realm, the state of the Shadow Realm right now. Because before, you may remember, the Shadow Realm just consisted of Thousand Suns, Harlequins, and Forge World from the Compendium. But as of now, I'm going to start doing what most other tier lists are doing. Not all, but most tier lists seem to be doing, and that's just, I'm not going to rank Compendium. Not that I think, so when you look at this, and you see Shadow Realm below D, that doesn't really mean that all these teams are worse than D. So I want to make a couple honorable mentions, because the fact is I don't want to rank every Compendium team. There's too many teams now. Most of the Compendium is irrelevant. There's a few relevant ones, though. I'll go over it now. I'm not going to rank them because I know there's a few people out there that do still play Compendium teams competitively and do well and have success with them. So for Into the Dark, I just want to clarify, I think that Craft World are quite good. They would probably sit around probably high C, maybe like low B. They're pretty good. In addition to that, Imperial Guard are probably, if you were to rank them with the bespoke teams, there's plenty of bespoke teams on here that they are better than. They would probably be like A or B, high B, A team, something like that. They are pretty good. And Tyranids as well have some juice just because of Gene Stealers being better on Into the Dark. They would probably be a C or B here. Probably a C. I just don't see them being they just don't have enough weird juice to warrant being higher than that. But anyway, yeah. So we're just ranking bespoke here today, and yeah, let's get started. So I have been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on this for a while on where I want certain teams, and I guess let's get some of the easy ones out of the way first. So I'm going to start with our lowest ranked team here, and that is Higher Tech Circle. Also the newest team, along with Kasrikan. I think this is my only D. I think this is the worst bespoke team right now. I've been talking to other top players that have been running Higher Tech Circle and having no success whatsoever. They are seriously lacking. They're probably the worst bespoke team we've had, period, on release. And there have been some murky ones, but this one is just clearly missing a lot. You effectively, it's you're relying so hard on reanimation, and a lot of the models are it's not the speed that's a problem really, because you can get around the speed pretty easily with ploys and stuff, but they just don't hit hard enough. They almost don't have a leader. Yes, the Cryptek is literally the leader, but think about it in the sense that every team, for the most part, has a leader model that is a beast that hits on twos. It's one of their strongest pieces. The Cryptek he's more of a support leader. And he hits on his offensively, he's pretty weak or like inconsistent at best. And so because of that, they don't have that like super punchy hit on twos reliable leader model that a lot of other teams do, and they've only got 8 operatives, so they really need to be reliable and consistent. And yeah, they're just missing a lot. I feel I haven't done like a deep dive on them, but this is based on my impression and what I've heard from other higher tech players. So I think this is the worst team at the moment, and I think probably the only thing in D tier. Probably. Yeah. Okay, well, since I'm starting from the bottom, I suppose a logical thing to do would be to work our way up, but I also just kind of want to throw stuff at the wall. So let's just grab another random team, and let's roll with it. We're going to go with Legionaries. Legionaries are an A tier team in my eyes right now in Into the Dark. I think Into the Dark is good for elite teams, first and foremost. I think that they've got some excellent blast attacks on the Psyker, for instance, which is obviously getting that lethal 5 on Into the Dark. They are just really hard to kill, and they are very good at killing you, pretty much regardless of what you're playing. So Legionaries have been having a ton of success in the meta recently. They podium a lot of tournaments, and I'm pretty high on them on Into the Dark. I think they're quite good. They're one of the best teams. They're like borderline S in my eyes. So, yeah. Let's move on now. Do we get this one out of the way? Let's get this one out of the way. Phobos. This is maybe D tier, but I'm going to put him in C tier for the sake of... I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Do I, though? Maybe I just put him in D tier. I'm going to put him in D tier. Nobody's really winning with this team right now. When they came out, I was under the assumption, and some other people were as well, that this was like a real like high skill ceiling team, and that once people kind of figured it out, they would start finding more success. And that kind of just hasn't happened. They have received some buffs lately, though, with the FAQ and the errata and with the last data slate. So maybe they belong in C, but their win rate is so bad. And I know I don't typically love win rates, but it's not just their win rates, it's their podium data too. They're really not winning anything anywhere. When you have teams like Legionnaire and Intercession in the meta, it's really hard to justify playing Phobos, in my opinion. So I'm putting them at D tier for now. Maybe throughout the video I'll change my mind and I'll slide them back up to the bottom of C, but I don't really like Phobos at the moment. Let's go over to... who do we want to hit next? There's so many teams here. Do we want to hit an S tier? Let's get an S tier out of the way. I'm going to start with Hunter Clade. So, Hunter Clade, this is maybe like borderline S tier for Into the Dark. Especially because, you know, their forward deploy shenanigans just got hit pretty hard. But in my opinion, I think that Hunter Clade are just a team that has incredibly good tools. They're very all-around amazing. They are not the easiest team to play, but they're a lot easier than they used to be. When you look at some of the other teams, the fact that they have 11 bodies is just kind of obscene. Ultimately, they are very good. They have the tools for a top player to really take them super far, and that's showing in tournaments lately, both open and Into the Dark, and mixed tournaments as well, from my understanding. Yeah, I just think Hunter Clade is just like pound for pound one of the best teams in the game right now, and I think that rings true still on Into the Dark. I don't think they're the best team on Into the Dark, but I think they are probably up there. All right, so we have no B or C yet, so we're going to start filling out the B tier. Let's start with Commandos. So FAQ errata, when they could forward deploy wherever they wanted and the map was their playground, I would have probably considered putting them at S. There were some missions where it was just like they just auto win because of that. That being said, I think that that's no longer the case, and they are really significantly brought back down to earth with that change. I still think they're a pretty good team in general on Into the Dark, and I'm not like low on them. They're probably going to end up being one of the higher B teams, I think, personally, on this list. But yeah, I mean, I think Commandos are just like they can hug the heavy walls with conceal and charge really safely. They don't have to go engage that often, which means they can avoid guard really well. Dynamite gets more lethal on Into the Dark because of Lethal 5. I just think they're pretty good right now. 10 bodies, 10 wounds per. They missed the forward deploy, but I think they're still a good team without it. Okay, so moving on to the next team here on our list, we are gonna hit up my personal favorite right now, and that is the Farstalker Kin Band, aka our sweet Kroot, who I've been playing a lot with on Into the Dark. They're probably the team I've played the most in the past month, but since they came out. I've probably played them more than any other team. And they are, I know a lot of immediate reactions to the Kroot was kind of something like this, but I think the thing is they're just a team with a higher skill floor. It's harder to pick them up and do well with them. For me, it took me like 3 or 4 games before I even started to like really understand what the team wanted to do. And if you want to hear me talk about Kroot more, I just did a chat with Travis Chang, who won the Chicago Open and is hosting the New York Open. That's on the channel right now. Go check that out. It's a very detailed look at Kroot. But as far as how they are on Into the Dark, personally, I think they're better on open board. I don't think that Into the Dark adds a lot to what this team does. They are average in melee and they are average in shooting, and it's that flexibility and being able to be average at both things that kind of makes them shine in some areas. But they also run into problems where they're forced to do one or the other against a team that is kind of strictly better. So I mean, if you can play Kroot to a high level, I think you can take them decently far, but they're not easy to play, and I think that the ceiling is a little bit capped right now. I think 11 bodies probably isn't enough for this team, and they lack a little bit of punch, in my opinion. So Kroot C tier, and that pains me because I really like them, and I'm playing them right now in the current CPTS Winter on the Command Point Discord, and they've been a ton of fun. And the sculpts are S tier, but the team itself is C in my eyes. All right. Moving on. It's so much easier doing this when I don't have 50 Compendium teams hanging over my head, by the way. It's like I can actually talk through some of my choices a little bit more, which is cool. We're going to go ahead and hit up... let's hit up Blooded, who is a team that I kind of was not a huge fan of on release, but I think quite a few teams have come out since that are worse than Blooded. I think when they came out, in my eyes, they were the worst bespoke team, but that has changed quite a bit. I see them being strictly better than Phobos now, and I think Into the Dark helps them a lot. They're a lot more melee focused. I think that they can, being bunched together means that they can hand out those stim buffs a little bit more reliably on Into the Dark. At least that's been my experience playing against them. I think that they are much improved on this format compared to open board. They get a lot of bodies. They get that Ogren. I'm kind of a fan of them. I'm not too high on them, though. Right now, I'd rank them below Commandos if I had to choose. But I would put them as a B tier team ahead of the 3 that we have on the board right now in C and D. So yeah, I mean, Phobos are interesting, right? Because they hand out these tokens, they hand out these buffs, and they're a horde, and the models are kind of mediocre in a vacuum, but you give them a lot of ways to do a little bit better, and suddenly you've got a lot of models on the board that are actually threatening you, and I think there's some merit to that in the way that Phobos Blooded can be an attrition heavy kind of horde team, which is not something you see a lot. But yeah, thumbs up right now for Blooded and Into the Dark. I like where they are right now. Okay. Let's see. What else do we got here? Let's go to another team that I've kind of crapped on in the past, and that is Corsairs. I'm really torn between whether I want Corsairs here or here. I mean, I'm going to put them behind Blooded. Corsairs, to my understanding, have been having more success on Into the Dark. And I think that can be attributed to a few things. For starters, I've always said that mobility, I think, is like kind of an overrated thing to have in Kill Team. I always liked teams where their one drawback was that they were kind of slow, like Death Guard. And I always wasn't a huge fan of teams where it seems like they sacrifice other positive things just so that they can be faster, like Corsairs, for instance. That being said, I'm Into the Dark. I think that mobility is a lot more valued. Being able to move, dash, and open a door on those opening turns, I think sets them up to score really well. They still kind of have the same problem where they are a very pillow-fisted team in my eyes. They don't hit particularly hard. They don't have a lot of dice manipulation. They do have things like the Blaster, but, and yes, it is AP2 with a lot of damage, but 4 attacks on 3s with no innate way to get rerolls outside of like that one strategic ploy where you have to be like Outcasts, I believe it's called. Yeah, there's a lot of weird conditions and asterisks on some of their good things, but I do think that the mobility helps them a lot. And in a world where a lot of teams are struggling to score victory points as efficiently as they used to, including Corsairs, to be fair, I think that mobility, though, is going to help them take early leads and kind of hold on to them and push an advantage that way. So Corsairs get a bump in my eyes. I'm putting them in B tier below Blooded. But yeah, that's where I sit on them right now. Okay, who do we want to do next? So, I guess with Starstriders, I'm kind of torn on where to put them. They are capped at 10 activations, and I think they share some of the problems that you see from Corsairs, where I don't want to say that they're punchier than Corsairs for sure. They hit harder, but and they have more bodies than Corsairs, but they're not quite as fast. Only 10 activations, I guess, is kind of rough. Sometimes it's going to be 9 because you do the GA2 stuff with the leader. But I don't know. I'm just torn. It's really hard to talk about Starstriders because I don't know why I didn't like them. It might just be... And to be fair, they get the support assets, so they actually kind of get more activations in a way. It's really tough to rank these guys. I want to say they're below Kroot. I think they are. They're really kind of like a hero hammer team where they're tied to a few key killers. And if something happens to one of those key models early on, you are in so much trouble. Granted, Into the Dark, it's harder to lose key models early on. That's kind of like a big thing about it. I'm going to put them behind Kroot. I think Kroot have more tools. I think Kroot have more tricks. I like Kroot a little bit more, but it is a tough call. These are really close in my eyes. Neither team is having really any tournament success at the moment. So let's put Starstriders there. This is kind of a tough one, guys. And the funny part is this probably sounds like I haven't played them at all. This is what it would sound like if I hadn't played them, but I actually have played them quite a bit, and I still don't know what to think. They're a weird team. I'm hoping somebody sees the Matrix with them and does work and plays well, but I don't see it personally right now, and I hope to see it. And while we're on the topic of the annual teams, let's talk about Gellerpox, who are, oh boy, I mean, I'm going to put them at the top of A. I'm going to put them above Legionnaires. Tempted to put them in S, but man, Gellerpox are pretty nasty on Into the Dark. They have weaknesses, for sure. And I think a lot of their early success has been tied to the fact that, people are not experienced against them, and they don't really know those weaknesses as well. But their success cannot really be discounted. They actually took first place at more tournaments than any other team in the month of October. Any other team, in counting data where there's at least 8 players and at least 3 rounds. So that is really impressive. More than Hunter Clade, more than Pathfinders, more than any team. Gellerpox are winning a lot, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there was a lot of Into the Dark or mixed Into the Dark tournaments going on in October. So Gellerpox are performing like an S-tier team at the moment in a lot of ways, but in my eyes, I think once the meta sort of adapts to them, not the meta so much, but just play styles from top players kind of figure this team out, I think we're going to see a little bit less success, but their strength on Into the Dark cannot be understated, and there are some teams that cannot exploit their weaknesses as well as others. So that pretty much sums up Gellerpox. If you can't tell, I'm pretty high on them. Give them a try. They're quite strong right now. Let's move on to... Let's get Veteran Guard out of the way. They've been sitting here. I'm going to put Veteran Guard right below, above... I don't know. This is kind of a tough call. I still think Veteran Guard are pretty good in general. I think people kind of stopped playing them. But I see the team and I see the ways that they struggle on Into the Dark compared to open board, and I definitely think they're better on open board, which is why I'm going to put them below Commandos right now. Maybe below Blooded. Let's put them there. I think they're better than Corsairs. They still have some weird tricks with the Demo Mine. The Demo Mine's really good on Into the Dark, but they are not super equipped for a close confines format. And I think a lot of what you're going to see from the few Vetguard players that are still running around, because a lot of Vetguard players have moved on from the team just because they've played them a lot. They've been around forever. And there's kind of stronger teams in the block right now, which wasn't always the case. I do think that they have some play in Into the Dark. In the hands of a good player, I absolutely believe Vetguard can win a Into the Dark tournament. It's not super easy with some of the stuff floating around, but I can picture it. I can just see it in my mind. I think they're probably a little worse than Blooded, maybe, which feels gross for me to say. Oh, yeah, I'm going to keep Blooded above Vetguard, but Vetguard are they've really fallen out of favor in the meta right now, and they're not as exciting as they used to be. But I still think they have good tools. They have a nice toolbox, and they've got a lot of bodies. And I don't think they're as lost on Into the Dark as some have said. So moving on now, let's do Novitiates, because Novitiates were like the best team, and then they got nerfed, and I still think they're very good. I'm gonna put them in A tier. I just think that their dice manipulation is still so good. They have a lot of melee. They have some amazing flamers, which are great on Into the Dark. Their melee is still solid on Into the Dark. I think they can Overwatch decently well just because of all the faith point manipulation. They can get around, what's it called? Overwatch from guard actions using Blinding Aura. So they've got some tools in the Into the Dark format that I think can make them kind of a pain in the butt to play against. Much like Vetguard, though, they went from being like one of the top teams to, taking a small hit, and now people are kind of tired of playing them, and they've fallen out of favor a little bit. I still think they're very good, though. I do think these teams are better, which is this is a huge indication of how different Into the Dark is compared to open board, that a team as good as Novitiates, even though they just got nerfed, they're still very good, are now suddenly a few steps behind some of the other teams all of a sudden. So let's move on. Should we do Kasserkin? I'm going to do Kasserkin. I'm going to put Kasserkin in C tier. This team has been getting crapped on so much because they are like the big brother of Scions, but also like worse than Scions. And I'm not going to deny that. I do think Scions are better than Kasserkin, especially on Into the Dark. Maybe on open board, there's an argument to be made for Kasserkin. As a rule, though, I think I think they've been getting too much flack. Yes, it sucks they hit on 4s. I think the problem is with the elite point system. I think they would be probably completely broken if they hit on 3s with the elite point system. That's just me. So maybe they need more elite points, but also they've been like mostly untested. So I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out they're actually quite good. People kind of like look at it from a dice consistency perspective and the, like, you know, how often are you going to actually, you know, whiff with this team, because, you know, they don't have a lot of rerolls. They're not hitting on 3s. But I think one thing that is underrated about this team is the ability to use the elite points to kind of increase the ceiling of a roll that was already really good. Because a lot of the time, taking a good roll to a great roll can be the difference between killing something and letting it live on a few wounds. So I'm higher on Kasserkin than most. I'm going to put him behind these teams. As a Kroot player, they don't really scare me too much on Into the Dark. They also have like no melee capability whatsoever, which is not great. But as a shooting team, I think they have a little more punch than some people give them credit for. And they've got good faction tac ops, which is also really valuable on Into the Dark. Maybe they're better than Star Striders. I don't know. I'm going to put Star Striders above them right now, but I think Kasserkin, people need to take a deeper look at Kasserkin and really play the team a lot, because they are getting like dumped on so hard, and I'm not sure how warranted it is. So yeah, but I'm not going to deny that Imperial Guard are better for sure. Anyway, so we've got quite a few left. Where do we go now? We've got, let's do Navis Breachers. I'm going to throw Navis Breachers in A tier. I think they're very good. Next to Kroot, who they came out alongside, it makes me jealous as a Kroot player to see all the cool stuff that Navis Breachers can just casually do. They have more bodies. They have this awesome like at will GA2 thing. They have amazing ploys. They've got great, you know, faction tac ops, and you know, they hit really hard. I mean, they hit like a truck. So Navis Breachers have been doing really well in their first month of existence as far as tournament play goes. And like I said, you have to look at that from the scope of, well, it was in October and there was a lot of Into the Dark tournaments happening. Most of that data is probably not Into the Dark because it's harder for a smaller tournament, for a TO to get that all set up. But a lot of it was. So in my eyes, and also with the Geist Skull, you know, the GA2, setting the Geist Skull up and detonating it on like an early round, there is a lot of, even on Into the Dark, you can really screw teams over on certain missions with that play early in the game. So I haven't seen enough to think that they're better than these teams, but Navis Breachers are very good and they should not be slept on. They will win tournaments for sure. So I'm left with teams that I either know exactly where they're going or I don't really know where they're going. So let's get Pathfinders out of the way. I think Pathfinders are an S tier still. I think they're the best team in the game. They are just really, I think, kind of overtuned even post-nerf. And it's been a while now. The nice thing about it, at least, like the takeaway, is that they are not super easy to play at that high level. Excuse me. But when played at that high level in the hands of a really good player, they are pretty disgusting. They kind of have it all. They have more bodies than almost any team. They have a ton of dice manipulation. They have guns that hit really hard. They have a lot of movement shenanigans. They're just like, they kind of have everything except melee. That's the only thing they don't have. And I don't even think they need it. They can shoot into melee too, so you can't even like go into melee with them and hide. So, I mean, Pathfinders just gross me out. I will say that they are not the best team in Into the Dark in my eyes, but they are probably the second best team. They're a top 3 for me easily. And they're not winning a lot of Into the Dark tournaments right now, but they're good enough to. Don't fool yourself. I mean, they are easily good enough to be doing that. So, let's do... Oof. These are tough calls now. We're getting into weird territory here, guys. All right, we're going to do Void Dancers. Void Dancers, I'm really torn between a high B placement or a low A. I'm leaning high B. After the nerfs, they definitely are a little less scary. They're not, they're not getting as many bonuses from doing their stuff. There's a little bit more counterplay on stuff like Segarak's chest, but like I was saying earlier with Corsairs, mobility is so good on Into the Dark, and these guys have it in droves, and they fly. So the few things that you have to worry about getting your way, like doors when they're open, or barricades that were set up in obnoxious ways by your opponent, Void Dancers just don't care. It's a little easier to play around Domino Field on Into the Dark. There's going to be a lot more shooting opportunities within 6 inches. But still, I think this team is quite good. I think they have a lot of really good play on Into the Dark. They've got just the right amount of melee threat and range threat and mobility that I'm pretty comfortable saying that they're one of the, top mid, I don't want to say mid-tier, even though I have them in B, but I view them as one of the best teams in this. Clearly, I see them as the best team in this tier. I have them at the top, but they're really close to being here. They might be better than Breachers. I don't really know. I think Void Dancers are great, and the one thing that is stuck through all these changes in both to Void Dancers and to the meta is that Void Dancers are still very easy to play. They have a really low skill floor, meaning you can pick them up and do really well, and they don't have a super high cognitive load on the person running them. So yes, I think Void Dancers are still very good. They might be worthy of an A slot, but I'm going to put them in B. And then moving on, let's do Wormblade now. Wormblade, I was going to put in C tier, but maybe that's not. I actually think that, weirdly enough, so the change to forward deploys, that affects hiding as well. And I think that the new version is actually better for Wormblade in a lot of ways, because yes, you're not putting 2 guys down, but hiding wasn't super useful in Into the Dark anyway. And honestly, the fact that you're keeping them on the board and setting them up normally and then moving them up and opening a door means that when you activate them in that round, they actually get their call to ambush. Whereas with hiding, you put them down and they don't get to benefit from call to ambush. So I do really like that. I think I'm going to put them back here. Maybe above Void Dancers. Maybe that's too harsh. Yeah, we're going to put them back here. I mean, they still, compared to open, they just miss so much stuff on open. The early Alpha Strike plays that they're able to set up, the turn 1 aggression, it's all just gone. And Wormblade they love that stuff. I mean, the fact that in open board they set up and conceal and they're still a threat, that's like a big deal on open board. But on Into the Dark, the other team, you can't see them anyway. They're all going to they could all set up and engage if they want. And that by the time that you're popping out of conceal, it's turn 2 and you could have been playing a team that can do that anyway. So pretty low on Wormblade on Into the Dark. Not a huge fan, but I think they're probably better than these teams here. It's close with Kroot in my eyes, but I'll lean Wormblade on ITD. All right, we're down to 2. We've got a White Dwarf team here. Warp Coven. Let's do them. Warp Coven, I mean, I hate to flood. You know what? We're going to put Void Dancers in A tier because I think it looks better and I think it feels appropriate. But Warp Coven, I'm going to put Warp Coven here, right spank in middle in B tier. And that feels right to me. I think that they are a little bit better on Into the Dark than they are on open board. Not significantly so. There's not huge things moving for them that improve their game. But I think just like little things like their blast attacks are a little bit more potent now. I think the Hero Hammer teams like them and Wormblade, to be fair, they like the fact that they don't have to worry about their key pieces getting like alpha striked and blown up on turn 1 because of a slight misposition. I think that Warp Coven are pretty solid here, and I'm not going to go super in depth on Warp Coven because I'm not a Warp Coven expert, but from what I've seen and from what I've heard, what I've seen in CPTS at least, they're clearly beating the teams that I have below them. for the most part, and they're losing pretty decisively to the teams I have like a whole tier or two above them. So if that doesn't say middle of the pack, I don't know what is. I will say ephemeral instability is just so annoying on Into the Dark. It's annoying in general, but on Into the Dark, where you can like exploitatively place barricades in the worst spots, ephemeral instability can just be debilitating, and I hate to play against it. So yeah, I mean, there's that. Maybe they're better than, maybe they belong up here. I don't think so, but maybe they do. All right, we're at the final team, guys, and I decided to save what I see as the best for last on Into the Dark, and that is Intercession Squad. So Intercession Squad is, I mean, I think they're great on open board. They're still probably an S tier team in my eyes, maybe A. But on Into the Dark with Methodical, they are just so efficient. I mean, this is dice efficiency like we have not seen from most teams. I mean, they can be hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s with a re-roll, and they have like P1, and they're shooting twice, and they don't even have to spend a ploy to shoot twice. And I don't know. I mean, this is like, this team just, and the ability to go on guard with Methodical, meaning that you can cover a room, point a gun into a room, and overwatch without suffering that penalty to the ballistic skill because of Methodical. They are almost never inefficient offensively. They're always hitting really, really hard, and they are among the most durable teams in the game. Honestly, they have like 14, 15 wounds. They're reducing crit damage, 3-up saves. There's no invulns here, but I mean, it is just like so difficult to punch through these guys, and they are extremely good at cutting your team down when they need to. So I view Intercession as the best team on Into the Dark, just a little bit above, Pathfinders and Clade. This is my outlook on the Into the Dark tier list. Let me know what you guys think. If you agree or disagree, if you think I've got something too high or too low. I love to read those comments. That is my favorite. And yeah, I mean, as always, shout out to our subscribers. We are nearing 7,000, kind of. I mean, we're like more than halfway there, so I guess that counts. Subscribe if you enjoyed this content, if you stumbled upon it and you're not subscribed. As always, of course, shout out to our patrons over at patreon.com/commandpoint. These guys are the best. I love you all. If you're not following our Patreon, it's as cheap as $1 a month. And it helps us out quite a bit, even though it doesn't sound like a ton. It does help. So I think that's pretty much it. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments. This is Shane with the Into the Dark Kill Team tier list, signing out.